Welcome back to Changed. I'm Megan Galloway and I'm your host. I'm so happy to be back with you today. I am in my hometown of Kansas City and I have such a special guest here today, a very longtime friend, also a Kansas City native, who has just absolutely taken the world by storm. It's been so much fun to see you grow throughout the last 15 years of our friendship. Today I have my dear friend Jessica Evans here with me. She is an incredible and inspiring woman who has just absolutely empowered so many people across the world. She was an amateur fighter in Australia and then moved to LA and has been an on-screen trainer for different apps and companies. And she empowers people to live with strength through fighting in lots of different ways. So I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
Jess. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to get into it.
So I would love to hear, I just told a little bit about you, but I would just love to hear if you would tell everybody a little bit about your story and your background and how you've come to sit at Messenger Coffee here with me in Kansas City this morning.
Yes, well, this could be a big story, but I'll keep it short for the sake of time. I am originally from Pleasant Hill, Missouri, and I always have to emphasize that because it's a very small town. I grew up in a town of 4,500 people, and I live in big cities, so it's very foreign to a lot of people. It's the country, but really it's suburbia. It depends on who you're talking to. Grew up playing sports my whole life, grew up in a really competitive family, and it wasn't until after high school that I ended up getting into a relationship, and this part's really important, that then kind of set me down the path of learning how to fight. And we can kind of get into that a little bit later. But ended up moving into fighting, which was amazing because it was something that I chose on my own for the first time, whereas everything else leading up to that, it felt like was chosen by my parents. And I think that's really important, the things that we choose for ourselves. So I stuck with it, and because it was purpose and it was something that I wanted to do for myself. So I started fighting around the age of 21, moved to Australia, started fighting over there, won a couple state belts in Australia. And at the time I was also going to school for production. I was always really fascinated by media and telling stories and film and all of that. So I really wanted to pursue that. So I was doing production with fighting on the side, gained an amazing team. Started picking up an Australian accent, completely lost it, unfortunately. And then after about 4.5 years, I felt like my time was coming to an end. And that's when I decided I'm going to move to LA. I want to pursue the rest of my production career. And it's really interesting because I did love production. I love telling stories. But I think that my time after a couple of years was coming to an end where I felt like I was doing it more for other people rather than for myself. And that's kind of what I highlighted earlier with why I got into fighting, is because I was doing it for myself. And something really tragic in my family happened in 2019 that I decided to finally completely change directions in my career. And I left production behind and I moved into fitness because it was always such a big part of my life and my story is sports and athletics and health and fitness. And I started working for an online app at that time, which was a lot of fun. I would teach boxing and kickboxing to camera. And things just kind of began to really unfold from there. And I think that's when you know you're on the right direction, is when doors continuously open and you're not trying to force things to happen. I think that's when you know that you're walking in the right direction. And one thing led to the next. And then I started posting on my social media, and then I started doing workshops in other countries. Next thing I know, I'm working on a film set. So I would say that I like to tell people that my story is one of small beginnings, and very small beginnings, being from the small town. And it literally wound me up in here talking to you, which is some of the highlight of my time when I come back home. And I'm really grateful and thankful that you are speaking with me today.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really love about your story and the way that you talk about it is that, and what you and I talk about, if there were no cameras here, just having a cup of coffee.
Right.
Is that you are relentless in pursuing the best things for yourself. And you are so kind and thoughtful about how you do that. You want to be authentic to you, but you're not afraid to go after what you feel like is best for you.
Yeah.
And you've made some really big moves in your life.
Yeah.
that have really, I mean, you put in a lot of hard work, but it's gotten you to a place where you're living the kind of life that you've always been like we would talk years ago and we would talk about our dreams together, and like you're living some of those right now, and it's so fun to watch.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually really cool. I would say, and people need to understand this, is usually the right thing is the hardest thing. And most people shy away from that. And I am relentless in going after what I want, but usually it is the harder path to choose. And I actually kind of embrace that with open arms. So like moving overseas is not easy when you're 21 and you're young and you're from the Midwest, where you don't really go much outside of the Midwest. And I would say, like leaving bad relationships, it's hard. Most people stay. And making career pivots. Why? Like people will just stay in a bad career. I think that the harder road to take is usually the right one. And I would say that my life is about embracing those hard moments. And I would say that actually my mantra is do it scared. I literally embrace the fear that I feel, just like in a fight. I embrace the fear and then I just go at it head on. And I think that if you live your life that way, I think that life will surprise you in the best way.
I think that's a beautiful segue into our big question that we ask every single guest on the show, which is, what is the one moment in life that you think has changed you most as a person?
Yes, I love this question. And it's so tricky because I do feel like there have been different major moments in my life. I call them forks in the road. You and I have talked about this, where you're faced with, I'm either going this direction or I'm going this one, and both will completely change your life, which path you choose. And I would say that the first major moment in my life that changed me was when I was 18 years old, when I was in that toxic relationship. And I would say the reason why it changed me is because I was very naive. It was my first relationship, and I went in with it with like fully blinded, I guess, maybe to how people can really be, as you do when you fall in love with somebody. You just embrace it fully. And I didn't know how much I was being manipulated, and I didn't know how much I was being controlled, and I was really pulled away from my family. I was isolated. All the signs of an abuser. I was isolated. I was treated poorly. I was emotionally manipulated. I lost so much weight. So it was verbally, it was mentally, and then one time it was a physically abusive relationship. And what's sad is that when you're in things like that, where you don't even recognize who you are, and I think a lot of women can relate to that. You don't know who you are. You also don't know how to leave. And I think that's why a lot of women, not all, but I think that's why a lot of people stay in those situations. And I would say that it finally got to a breaking point, and by the grace of God, I got out of that relationship. I'm really thankful. I would be a completely different person if I stayed. But I think he had worn me down so much that when I left, it took a lot of digging me back out of that hole before I finally decided that I was going to learn how to fight to make sure that never happened again. And that was a pivotal moment in my life. Pivotal in the sense of, I'm glad I left because I was very young. And another thing, and I thought I was going to marry this person, which is crazy. I mean, first of all, 19 is, in my opinion, way too young to get married. I thought I was going to marry this person. And then another reason is it literally set me down the trajectory, because I'm a very stubborn person, of this is never going to happen again. And honestly, I do not say this. I do not condone abuse. It's never okay. But had I not been in that situation, I really don't know who I would be today. So I thank God for the hard moments in life, because they really are the moments that change us the most for the better, if we allow it to. So I tell people painful situations, but turn into purposeful ones if we know how to direct it in the right way. So I would say that was the moment that changed my life the most, to where I am sitting here with you today.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
And I want to ask a question about one of the things that you just said there, which is, if we know how to, we can change these painful moments into purposeful moments. And if somebody who's watching this is going through one of those challenging, painful moments,
right,
where maybe like I heard you describe this feeling of like, I feel like I didn't even know who I was anymore. And I know you knew that you needed something different, but it felt like any step you would take into something different would be like a step into the unknown.
Right.
What advice would you give someone who's going through one of those hard moments to turn something that feels really painful into something that can create that type of purpose?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's done step by step in creating painful ones into purposeful. I don't think it happens immediately, because I believe that first, for us to be able to create change, we have to accept what's happened. And I think sometimes we want to jump ahead. I had to accept what I was in and the choices that I made in it, because we all have responsibility no matter what we're in. And I wanted to properly heal through that situation. I didn't want to cover it, because eventually that would come up later on in my life. And then maybe I'd head down a different direction because I didn't actually take care of that original one. So I would say that the first step to making a painful thing into a purposeful one is to accept what's happened and start the healing process. Like you're going to have to uncover some really hard truths. Maybe that's talking to a professional. Maybe that's just allowing yourself to journal. Like, journal does wonders. Journal it out, write it out, take time. I believe that time really can heal wounds. I took time for myself. And then I also, on top of it, I found a great community and a healthy outlet. I think that all of these things, it's not like a 5-step plan or anything, but these are just things that helped me in that process. And then from there, I started to dream again. Sometimes it's hard to dream when you're just surviving. And Dr. Caroline Leaf talks about the brain, and she said that 2 things can't happen at the same time with our brain. We can't survive and grow at the same time. We can only do one or the other. And that's another thing I read. I would read a lot, and I would try to find like knowledge or help in like whatever way I could. So I knew that in that moment I was in survival mode, so I wasn't in growth mode. So once I finally got over that hump and I was in growth mode, then I started to think of, okay, now what can I do that's like actionable, that can make this make sense for my future? And I would say that was probably the last step that I took. And then from there, it's just about walking through doors that open and reminding ourselves not to repeat the same patterns, because that's sometimes the easiest thing to do, is to repeat old behaviors. But if we're repeating old behaviors, then we're just walking ourselves back into another painful situation.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to as well, like a lot of the things that you were talking about at the beginning, where you talk about like you intentionally embrace the discomfort or the fear of hard situations or unknown situations or tough choices. And I also think like what you're talking about here is another embracing of a hard feeling, which is, I think that when hard things happen to us, even if we've done nothing wrong, a lot of us feel this like deep shame.
Right, for sure.
That we allowed something to happen, or that something bad has even happened. Because it's not like, I don't know, most of us don't go around and talk about all the hard things that are happening in life.
Right.
We talk about
the positive ones.
Positive things, like especially on social media, right? Like that's all you see is like all the good things. And so I think that even admitting to yourself that something has been hard, and that we feel shameful, or we feel whatever the hard feelings are, it's like embracing every single one of the emotions that we're having, even if they do feel uncomfortable, so that then we can move through them instead of just pretending like they don't exist. That's like one of the hardest things in life, I feel like.
It is, I think, one of the hardest things. And even what's interesting is that even when it comes to self-defense, and this is something I teach women, it is in our nature to ignore things that are happening. So when women walk, if you talk to people that have been subject to domestic violence or anything on the street, we usually avoid things that are happening. And I think that that's like in our psyche. I think naturally we want to avoid the hard things. We want to avoid difficulty. We want to avoid that bad things exist. But they do. And when I teach those women in self-defense, I tell them you have to confront the perpetrator. You have to confront them head on, because usually it scares them. I think the same thing exists when we confront the things that have happened to us, the hard things in our life. We have to confront them, and we have to be like, you're not moving forward with me. And like, I mean, you're talking to yourself. I talk to myself often, actually, give myself great advice, but you have to talk to yourself and be like, we're not moving forward with this anymore, Jess. Like, we're not accepting this anymore. And I think that same thing exists in what we're talking about, just like it does when you're out there doing practical things like protecting yourself on the street.
Yeah, it's definitely like a defense mechanism.
It is a defense
Just what's happening in our brain.
Yeah.
And it's like this conscious choosing of something different.
Yeah.
So that you can choose that growth instead of survival, which is beautiful. So when you think about, like, if we were to really zoom out and you were to think about what that moment in life taught you, like, you've been through lots of other really big things in your life.
Yeah.
Lots of other forks in the road, as you call them.
Yeah.
What do you think that first moment taught you that you've, like, kept with you?
This is a good question. You know what? Funny story. I've done a lot of podcasts and talked to a lot of people about this, but no one's asked me that. What I feel like that specific situation taught me that I've never forgotten. The first thing that comes to my mind is an Eleanor Roosevelt quote. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I think that's important. And I think that is very broad, but I think that because I didn't know who I was, I allowed someone to really dictate how I should be. And I think that's the reason why that quote comes to my mind, is because, and I've held on to that from a young age, no one gets to dictate who you are, where you go, like what you believe about yourself. And I think that even before that, before the situation, I had allowed people to dictate where I went, what I did, who I was, made me feel small about myself. Just the same way that relationship did. So I think that I've held on to that strongly since that. After I came out of that traumatic situation, I was like, no one's going to make me feel inferior and about where I'm going and who I am and what's next for me. I'm never going to let that situation happen again. So I think that that's something I've probably held really tightly to myself. And I wouldn't say it's like what steers the ship per se, because I never want to make decisions from a place of pain now that I'm on the other side of it. Maybe I did for a while. I think that's very normal through the healing process because it can take a while. I would say that that's something I always look back to, and it's like a nice little reminder that I still hold on to, and I don't let anybody, like, I'm very strong in that.
Yeah, you want to choose who you are.
Yeah, and I want to go where I want to go, and I want to have dreams that I want to dream, and I'm not going to let anybody else like dictate that. And that goes back to what you said in the beginning, where you were like, you kind of just pursue relentlessly what you want, and it's true because that comes from probably that big moment in my life.
Well, and I think one of the things that is so beautiful about, like, these big moments is it does teach us more of who we want to become.
Right.
And then the more that we, like, I believe this about our values too. Like, and I think this is something that's, like, seriously lacking in a lot of places around the world, but especially in our country right now, is I think that the more we challenge our own beliefs and our own assumptions and our own values even, the more we get the opportunity to either confirm that, yes, this is, like, really what we believe.
Right.
Or, no, I want to update this. I want to, like, choose something different.
Agree.
Because we're all forever changing, right? Like, our neural pathways are literally constantly rewiring every single day. Our brain is different yesterday than it is today than it will be tomorrow. Like, that's just part of humanly who we are. And so I think my question for you is, we're sitting here today. It's right around the holidays when we're filming this. We're in Kansas City. What do you feel most proud of for who you are today in your identity? And through all these moments in life that have shaped you, like, what are you feeling most proud about who you've become?
I think that resilience is a trait that's kind of gone away. I don't think we experience it as much in our culture anymore. I think that's something about myself that I'm the most proud of, is the ability, like, to persevere and to be resilient through things that happen. Again, like, confronting things head on and like accepting the challenge and willing to, like, work through it and to adapt and to change through it. So yeah, I guess that would be my answer. I think resilience. I think that that's like a really positive trait. And I think that if you can pass resilience on to another generation or to a friend or to someone who's going through a hardship as well, I think that that's like one of like the greatest gifts that you can give somebody. And not a facade. It's not fake. It's like real resilience, and the ability to overcome and the ability to like be stronger.
I think it's easy for us to like look at people on Instagram, like fitness influencers, for example, and like look at their lives and feel like they have it all figured out, and it's impossible for like a normal person to get to this place of like being really fit or active or, and I'm curious, like if you would talk a little bit more. Several years ago, you underwent a significant health challenge.
Right.
And had to like really rebuild your strength. And like, it was like a perfect example of resilience. Will you share a little bit about how you overcame and rebuilt after something like really knocked you down?
Right. Yeah. So this specific situation was when I had a stroke, which at 31, which when I tell people about this, they still are very jaw dropped. And as am I, and I went through the experience. It was, first of all, it was a very humbling experience, and humbling in a sense of I lived my life very healthy. I still do. Very healthy. You looked at me, I looked very healthy on the outside, drank water, like I'm a religious water drinker, 8 hours of sleep every night, exercise, the whole wazoo. But I think it's a perfect example that we can do everything within our power, and something can still happen to you. And I think relinquishing that control is a very freeing feeling. It can be a very daunting feeling as well, but it's also a very freeing feeling because you're like, I will do everything within my power, but then we just have to be as well. But the way that I overcame that is, first of all, accepting that we have very little control of in the grand scheme of things of what can happen. And then I would say another thing is that I just had so much gratitude walking away from that situation. And I think that is so important to remember. I think this is also what helps us be resilient in life, is that instead of coming from a place of victimization, which is so easy, and comfortability, which is what I talked about, we come more from a place of, I am just grateful that we found the issue and I had a surgery. I'm so grateful that we had the ability to work with health professionals. I'm so grateful that I really, and this is why I said journaling is really important. I would just constantly write those things down because yes, it was a very like traumatic situation, but I walked away from it with so much gratitude that I was just going to be able to still do what I loved, because not everyone gets to. And I was able to like walk away, get to do what I love, and eventually build back that confidence in myself. Now, it didn't go away right away. It took time. I had a lot of PTSD from that situation. So it was a rebuilding phase for me, but I allowed myself to slow down and to do it. And I would take it step by step. I would take it day by day. I would take it week by week. I would take it month by month. And the same way that I talk to people about building a habit, I did that to myself. I was like, if I can just do these things and have this mindset each day and then each week and then each month, then I can eventually work myself back to a place where I feel confident in my body again, to not fail me. And also, get back to the place that I felt comfortable boxing, because I lost control of my right arm. So I was like, am I ever gonna be able to do what I love again? Will I be able to box? So I took my time and I was generous with myself and I was patient with myself. And it's great because I finally got back to a place where I could lift the same amount of weight I was doing. I could box and be physical. And it's great. I was very open about it because I realized that a lot of people had very similar experiences as me at a young age, or had health issues, and I was able to be there. And that's why I actually believe that's why we go through things in life, is not just for ourselves and the resilience we build within ourselves, but actually what we can pass on to other people. And they also say that's the full circle of appreciation, is when we actually get to share it with other people. And I think being able to share those experiences, like the stroke or the relationship I had been in, is also how you move from a painful situation to a purposeful one, is actually passing on that knowledge and that strength to other people who need it when they go through it as well.
Yeah. I think that's just such one of the most beautiful parts of life.
Yeah.
Is having that connection on
Mm-hmm.
a deeper level with other people who
I agree.
have been through similar challenging things or similar beautiful things.
Right.
And being able to talk about who we're becoming as a result of whatever it is we've gone through. And I think that anybody that's been in that type of situation, whether it's a very significant health issue, like a stroke, like what you've been through, or whether it's a small thing like an injury and you're having to recover from that injury. I mean, they say that your brain, if you're a regular fitness person and you're used to exercising regularly and then something drastic happens to you where you can't work out anymore, in the first 8 weeks post-incident, your brain has depressive tendencies as a result of the lack of hormones that you normally have.
Oh, I definitely had that.
Working out.
Yeah, it is hard. And I actually think that is the reason why, because I knew how depressive it felt and the fear of all of it and this why did this happen to me? And that is why you have to combat, you have to approach life like a fight. And that is something that I would also say, I mean, this goes hand in hand with resilience that I have carried through my life and I realized actually existed when I was younger as well, is that I am not afraid of a fight. And that's what I also want to help women realize about themselves, is that you're stronger and you have a bigger fight in you than you realize. Because maybe society has told you to suppress it or the way, whatever, the system, whatever it is, has told you to silence that side of yourself, but we're very strong and we can fight through very hard circumstances. And I think that there's so many parallels with fighting and what it is that we do go through life in terms of we do get knocked down. We have this crazy health scare, but guess what? Are you just going to walk away and take the mouth guard off? Or are you going to stand back up and you're going to keep fighting? And that is what I believe life is. It's a lot of knockdowns and it's a lot of you deciding if you're going to get back up and fight another round. And I love that parallel because it's so vivid in my mind because I know what it's like to fight. And when you're staring down your opponent, which is maybe that hard obstacle that you're facing, or maybe it's your boss you can't stand. I mean, whatever it is, fill in the blank. You literally have the choice to look at them and be like, I'm not giving up. I'm going to fight through this. And it's hard and it's daunting. And like I said, it comes with, you have to almost claim the victory before you have it in many ways. You have to claim that you're going to win it no matter what. Because I think that psychological power is really important of, I'm already going to win this fight. Yeah, maybe it's going to be 10 rounds. Maybe it's going to be 2. But I've already won this, and I'm going to come out on top.
Yeah. And I love the message that you have around the gratitude here, too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the things that finding those pieces of gratitude helps you find your path forward in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's if you are in a hard work situation, for example,
right,
and you hate your job and you really want to find something different, but you are too scared to do something else for whatever reason. And financial security is a real hardship that I understand. Sometimes it is prohibitive. So
right.
I want to acknowledge that. But I think that a lot of times we trap ourselves in these situations.
Yeah.
And finding gratitude for what could be and what you already have is such an interesting path.
Right.
That I think builds that confidence to take a step into the unknown and to know here's all the beautiful things that I do have,
right,
that I am already equipped with. And it's that resilience. I think the way that I visualize resilience is there's this bucket that all of us have of resilience, and some of the hard things that we go through in life, or some of the inner monologues that we have in our brain, sometimes put these layers on top of that bucket so we can't see it at times.
Right.
And it feels hard to dig down to get to.
Right.
And I feel that's where gratitude peels some of those layers back off and helps you understand and see no, there's all of this here that I can tap into.
Right.
But we just forget it's there sometimes.
I agree. And I think sometimes we don't realize that it's there until we go through difficult situations. Because back in 2019, I think it's important to talk about this because this is when I made a career pivot. And career pivoting is hard. Most people don't do it. You understand this. You career pivoted. Like, I think we want to stick, this is what I was talking about. We want to stick with what's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier just to like ignore all of the stuff that's going on and all of the ways that we feel. But back in 2019, my little brother passed away. And I know that it stinks that it has to happen in such extreme circumstance. But sometimes it is that. It's as extreme as losing someone so deeply close to you. And I thought about all the ways of like what maybe could have helped my brother keep him alive. And I think what it taught me more than anything, because like I said, there's been a lot of moments in my life that really feel like they have changed me significantly. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from that moment is that I just don't want to waste my life. And I really hope that it doesn't take someone losing someone significantly to make that change in their life. Unfortunately, that is what it took for me. But I don't want to waste my life. My brother doesn't get to experience the rest of his life. And I don't want to like look back 20 years from now and be like, what if I had done this? Or what if I had done that? And I almost kind of like wanted to live my life in honor of him in a positive way. I'm like, I want to live my life in such a way that like he sees it and he's like so proud. So when I career shifted and went from production to fitness, that is really what set my life on such a positive trajectory. I'm not saying that what I was doing, but this is why life is so crazy. Check this out. I left production because of this situation that happened in my life. And because I wanted to honor my brother in like a positive way of not wasting my life, because he doesn't get to experience this anymore. And that's the reason why I got this tattoo. This is a part of the Semicolon project that is like to help raise awareness for people that struggle with like suicide, depression, addiction, and everything. And the reason why I love this is because the semicolon represents that their story is not over. And I really believe that I'm an extension of my brother's story. He doesn't get to share the rest of his story, but I get to. And I want that to be positive. So I went down this path of health and fitness, which was something I was really passionate about anyways, which unfolded into a beautiful flower. And then now I just got back from working on a film set with this new passion. And I believe that's life. It's literally full circle. When you make choices for yourself and for what you genuinely want to do with your life, things always come full circle. Just like a character arc in a beautiful story like The Lord of the Rings. He came back to the Shire at the end, you know? Like, sorry if that was a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, block your ears. But I went production, I went martial arts production, fitness production with martial arts.
It's all come right back around to you.
Right back around. And who could have curated that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I just so deeply admire and like treasure about our friendship and like seeing you as a person is how much you open yourself up to the possibilities of what could be in the world. And you're not trying to force doors open to just like make it become true for you because you're dreaming it.
Right.
It's like this bigger energy that's out there that's like, you want to make good in the world. You want to do it for the right reasons. You want it to be true to you as a person.
Yeah.
And you're living on behalf of somebody that was so important to you. And I really do believe like that when we find that thing, whatever it is for us that like is our bigger thing, that's what opens the doors.
Yeah.
Like that's what creates those moments where we like, even when we're terrified,
right,
we like have to say yes to something.
Right.
And I think if someone's listening to this and like you don't know what that is for you yet, like what would you say to them? Like what advice would you have for them to help them find like that core to how they should find their yeses?
Oh, that's good. And you are an example of that as well. As you can tell, you know, like you wouldn't be here like if it wasn't for you choosing those doors that open for you. I don't think, and I think this is important to point out, I don't think that every door that opens is one you walk through.
True.
I think that intuition is really important.
if I really look back on my life, like, that gut feeling that you're like, like at first how we're like, oh, our parents, it's our parents, our intuition, we're going to get in trouble. But we do have a really strong intuition of what we believe is best for us. We usually ignore it, especially when it comes to relationship. We ignore it. We ignore the red flags and we just think of possibility of what if, or they could be. I think the first thing is in knowing and saying yes to certain things is we need to listen to our gut instinct because we know ourselves better than we think. And anytime I've listened to my gut instinct about something, I was usually pretty right about it. I knew, like, because we learn from our situations. I'm like, okay, this is not the right thing because of this. And I think that I should go this way. Another thing is in saying yes, you said in saying yes to the right things, right? Is also knowing that everything we go through serves a purpose. And what I mean by that is even the really crappy job, like you can't stand, serves a purpose. And we have to see the purpose in everything that we go through. I had a teacher like a long time ago tell me that preparation time is never wasted time. It's our desert moments. I've had a lot of desert moments in my life where I'm like, I have no idea why I'm here. I am in the desert and I want to be here. But you have to, in those moments, take away whatever it is that you're supposed to learn before the next door opens. That's what I believe. Because as soon as we take away that lesson we're supposed to learn, I think that's when opportunity presents itself. So funny story. When I lived in Australia, I worked at Outback Steakhouse. Right? Crazy.
Wait, Outback Steakhouse while you were in Australia?
Yes. And it's an American franchise. And I remember being in there. I hated that job. I would walk myself to work. It was because I was a student. I didn't have a car. I'd walk 45 minutes after my classes over there. And I would have to close that. I swear my manager hated me and I had to close every night. And I would be out there sweeping the floor. And I know this sounds so silly, but I told myself, what am I going to learn from this situation? And I thought, like maybe it's like perseverance. Maybe it's integrity. If I have to sweep a floor for the rest of my life, I'm going to sweep this floor the best that I can. And when I really started to like do that with myself rather than like dreading and victimizing myself and being like, oh, poor me, that's when a new opportunity opened up for me. And then I got to work a job at Virgin Active and teach swim lessons, which paid extremely better, was much closer to where I lived. And that's what I mean. Like, I never wanted to not take something out of those situations. And so all that to say, what can you learn from the situation that you're in now that you can use in that next moment? I think that's really important. Preparation time is never wasted. And another thing is knowing which doors that open are the doors for you to walk through. Because not every opportunity is a good one for you. I've had a lot of opportunities where in my spirit, I was like, oh, I feel like that might not be the right. So I had to turn it down. And it looked really nice because it had a really good dollar sign next to it. And it had a lot of like glam to it. But you have to like really know, like, does this actually align with who I am and where I want to go? Or is it just like a cool opportunity for the moment?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of what you're talking about too here goes back to what you were saying earlier too about like survival versus dreaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think when we play the victim, we fall into survival.
Yeah.
It shuts our brain down. So like, even if the opportunities were there, we couldn't even see them.
Agree.
And
Exactly.
so it's about like, how do you get your brain into that dreaming state? And then to your point, choosing the ones that then serve us best to help us become who we want to be tomorrow.
Yes.
And not everyone is going to be right, but not every decision we make is going to be the exact right decision.
Right.
But it's all part of our path to becoming who we want to be.
Exactly. That's beautifully put.
Okay, so speed round.
Yes.
First question is there anything that you used to hate, but now you love, or vice versa? Maybe you used to love it, but now you hate it.
Okay.
I used to hate it, but now I love it. Does that work?
Yeah.
Pancakes.
You love pancakes now.
But I used to hate them.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go as basic as that. I used to hate pancakes, and I love them now. I'll eat them if they're on the menu.
I love it. I love it. What is one book or movie that's like totally changed your perspective?
Oof, this is good. I would say that one of the books that really changed my perspective, especially during like COVID and like around that time, is either A, The Alchemist, which is an amazing book. I totally recommend it. I read it every year. And then the second one would be Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Amazing. Yep. Last question. If you could change one thing about our world right now, what would you change?
I think we need more kindness because we literally have no idea what people are going through. We have no idea. And I would say that's the biggest takeaway I had from my brother passing is you just don't know what's going on in people's lives and what they're struggling with and what they just went through. So I would just say, even if it's small acts of kindness, I would say kindness would make a huge ripple effect that I think would change the way that our country and our world's going.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Thanks.
And speedy too. You did good. You did good on the speed run. All right. So if anybody watching this or listening to this wants to learn more about you, where's the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So best place to get in touch with me is going to be on Instagram at Jess Evans Fit, or that's on TikTok, or it's on Facebook, or it's on YouTube. And also you can go ahead and check out my digital services that I have at essentialsboxingcollective.com. You can also check me out there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. You're the best.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of Changed. It was absolutely lovely to have you here. We'll see you the next time.